The trail was barely visible now, just a faint scar through the undergrowth, half swallowed by ferns and wet soil. Mark raised his hand, signaling the others to stop. The forest around them was silent. No birds, no rustle of wind, just the sound of their breathing. "Why'd we stop?" Nate asked, pushing his damp hair back under his beanie. He tried to sound casual, but his voice came out quieter than he meant. Mark squinted ahead. Through the trees, about 30 yards away, he saw something that didn't belong here. A glint of color, blue, faded nylon, the corner of a tent. "There," he said, nodding toward it. The group moved carefully, branches scraping against their jackets. As they stepped into the small clearing, they froze. Tents, 6 or 7 of them, arranged in a loose circle, half collapsed but still standing. Camping chairs, a cooler lying on its side, mugs on a foldable table, one still half full of something dark. Everything looked lived in. But there were no people. "What the hell?" Sarah whispered. Mark scanned the site. Backpacks, sleeping bags, shoes, nothing looked disturbed. If animals had raided the camp, they would have left a mess. But it wasn't a mess. It was tidy, almost careful, as if everyone had just stepped away for a moment and never came back. "Maybe it's a ranger station group," Lena said, though even she didn't sound convinced. The camera around her neck swung slightly as she crouched to look closer at the cooler. Ice had melted long ago, but the cans inside were still cold to the touch. "That's impossible," Thomas muttered. "Nobody's been up here for weeks. The trail was practically gone." Mark didn't answer. He just walked slowly between the tents, scanning the ground. "No footprints leaving the site," he said, "only coming in." Lena frowned. "You think they got lost?" He shook his head. "No, they didn't leave." For a while, no one spoke. The forest felt heavier here, like the air itself didn't want them to stay. Nate tried to lighten the mood. Maybe Bigfoot invited them for tea. Nobody laughed. Inside the largest tent, Lena found a small black camera lying on its side near an unrolled sleeping bag. She picked it up and checked the screen. It blinked once, battery low, but it turned on. "Still works," she said. Mark stepped beside her. "What's on it?" A few photos, a group of young people, maybe in their 20s, smiling in front of the same camp they were standing in now. Another photo of someone cooking by the fire. Then one more, darker, blurred. A man's face, eyes wide, taken too close. Then a video. Lena hesitated, then pressed play. Static at first. The frame shook violently. Inside a tent, lit by the glow of a lantern, a man sat close to the camera, whispering. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and sweat. "They're gone," he said. His voice was trembling. "All gone. It took them. I don't—" He looked over his shoulder, as if hearing something. "If someone finds this, don't." The sound distorted, rising into a harsh electronic crackle. Then, silence. The video ended. "What the hell was that?" Nate said. "Some kind of prank?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "Like a found footage thing?" Thomas exhaled slowly. "If it's a prank, someone went all in." Mark looked at the other tents. "Let's check the rest of the site. Maybe we'll find something that explains this." As they split up, Lena stayed near the table, scrolling through the other videos. They were ordinary, laughing around a fire, hiking, joking. Then the last one again. She replayed the man's words. "They're gone. It took them." "Took them where?" she murmured. The day began to fade. Shadows stretched longer, and the forest turned to a blur of gray and green. They decided to camp near the same site. Mark argued it was safer than wandering in the dark. No one agreed out loud, but no one argued either. By nightfall, their tents were up beside the empty ones. The fire crackled softly, the smoke curling upward into the black canopy. "Still think it's a prank?" Thomas asked, staring into the flames. Nate forced a grin. "Sure, someone probably filming us right now for views." But even as he said it, he glanced into the trees, half expecting to see a camera lens glint back. Lena sat apart, reviewing the footage again on the camera. Every time she reached the part where the man looked over his shoulder, she felt something cold slide down her spine. There was something in his eyes, not fear exactly, recognition. Sarah broke the silence. "Do you guys hear that?" Everyone went still. There it was, a faint sound beyond the fire's crackle. A slow, deliberate rustle, like someone brushing against the outer walls of a tent. Nate stood up. "Probably an animal." Thomas grabbed his flashlight. "Then why does it sound like it's breathing?" The sound stopped. Complete silence. Then, softly, from the dark, came a whisper. It wasn't words, just the sound of breathing back. Mark's voice was barely audible. "Guys, someone's outside." The morning was colder than it should have been. Mist hung low over the empty camp, curling through the tents like slow smoke. No one had slept well. Mark was already up, crouched near the fire pit, poking at the ashes. "No tracks," he said quietly, not looking at anyone. "Nothing moved around here last night." Thomas gave a dry laugh. "Except for that breathing thing circling the tents." "Stop," Sarah muttered, rubbing her temples. "I don't even know what I heard anymore." Nate came out of his tent, eyes bloodshot. "Maybe it was one of us," he said. "Dreamwalking or something." Mark shook his head. "We were all inside. The zippers were closed from the inside. I checked." No one replied. The forest was still too quiet. No wind, no insects. Just the low hum of dread that none of them wanted to name. Lena sat cross-legged near her bag, camera in hand. She had charged it using her power bank. "There's something weird," she said. "There's a folder I didn't see yesterday." Mark looked over. "What do you mean?" "I checked the SD card again. There's a hidden video file, dated 2 days after the last one." Nate frowned. "Maybe you missed it?" She shook her head. "No, it wasn't there before. I'm sure." Thomas knelt beside her. "Play it." Lena hesitated, then pressed play. The screen flickered to life. The same tent, the same man, but his face looked different now. Hollow eyes, pupils wide. He was whispering something, words too soft to catch. Mark leaned closer. "Can you turn it up?" The man's voice trembled. "It's still here. It copies them. Their voices. It waits until you call their names." He looked directly into the camera. "Don't say their names in the dark." Then came a faint scratching sound, something moving just outside the tent. The man turned. The camera jerked. For a split second, the frame caught something standing between the trees, tall, narrow, like a figure made of shadows. Then, static. The video cut off. Thomas exhaled. "That's not human." Nate forced a laugh, but it broke midway. "Could be fake, CGI. Someone made this for views." Lena met his eyes. "This camera's 10 years old. You really think someone made a fake video just to leave it here?" No one answered. Mark stood up. "We pack and leave. Now." Sarah looked around, uneasy. "But which way? We lost the trail coming here." Mark pulled out his compass. The needle spun aimlessly. "It's busted," he said. "Of course it is," Thomas muttered. They tried their phones. No signal. Every direction looked the same. Trees, mist, silence. Hours later, they were still circling the same patch of forest. Each time they thought they were moving away, the tents appeared again through the trees, exactly where they'd started. "This doesn't make sense," Sarah said, her voice cracking. Mark slammed his hand against a tree. "We must have looped around." "Twice?" Thomas snapped. "3 times?" Lena checked her camera again. The battery was half drained. She pointed it at the trees, zooming in. For a moment, she thought she saw something move between the trunks. Too tall, too still. Then, nothing. By sunset, tempers had frayed. Nate blamed Mark for not leaving earlier. Sarah cried quietly near the fire. Thomas argued that they should head north at dawn, no matter what. But when darkness came, no one wanted to move. Lena sat by her tent, clutching the camera. She replayed the hidden video, pausing on the moment where the man turned his head. She zoomed in on the shadows behind him. Between two trees, yes, there was something there. Not a person. Something else. She didn't tell the others. That night, the noises came back, softer this time, almost cautious, a twig snapping, a whisper that might have been her name. Lena. Her eyes flew open. She held her breath, listening. The voice came again, closer. Lena, come here. It sounded exactly like Mark. She unzipped the tent slightly. Mark? No answer. Just the quiet rhythm of breathing, inches away. Mark, stop screwing around, she whispered, trying to sound angry. But the voice outside spoke again. Same tone, same inflection. Lena, come here. And then she realized. Mark was still snoring in his tent. The voice outside wasn't him. She backed away, trembling. The sound moved, slowly, deliberately, past her tent, fading into the trees. At dawn, she ran to Mark's tent, shaking him awake. You called my name last night? He blinked. What? No. Why? Her lips trembled. Someone did. Before anyone could respond, Sarah shouted from across the camp. Where's Nate? His tent was empty, sleeping bag unzipped, boots gone, but his backpack still there, his flashlight too. Thomas scanned the tree line. Nate, he shouted. The forest gave nothing back, just silence, thick and endless. They searched for hours, calling his name, until the sun sank low again. But deep down, Lena knew calling out was a mistake. Each time they yelled, Nate, the echo came back from somewhere else, faint, delayed, like the forest itself was repeating them. When night fell, she turned on her camera, scrolling to the first video she shot in this camp. It was dark, shaky footage of them sitting around the fire the night before. But halfway through, she froze. In the background, behind her own tent, a shadow stood. Tall, motionless, watching. She zoomed in, heart pounding. It was the same shape from the old recordings. And the timestamp? It said 1:46 a.m., the exact time she'd heard her name whispered. Lena's voice cracked as she whispered, That's from last night. The night was too quiet again. The fire had burned down to a faint red glow, barely enough to warm the air between the tents. No one really slept anymore. They only drifted in and out, trapped between exhaustion and dread. Lena lay awake, staring at the tent's ceiling. The nylon shifted slightly in the breeze. Every sound seemed magnified. Her own heartbeat, the distant creak of trees. Then she heard it. A voice. Faint, but close. Nate, her breath caught. It wasn't possible. He was gone. Yet the voice sounded exactly like him. Not terrified, not distorted. Calm, almost pleading. Lena, come here. She froze. The others were asleep. Mark's snoring faint, Sarah's breathing steady. The voice came again, softer now. Lena. She sat up, heart pounding, and slowly unzipped the tent. The night outside was thick and colorless, the trees swaying just slightly in the still air. Then she saw movement. A shadow, human-shaped, crossing the clearing. Tall, shoulders hunched. Thomas. He was walking toward the trees, slow and deliberate, not stumbling, not lost, as if following something. Thomas, she whispered. But he didn't turn. She slipped out of the tent, grabbed her flashlight, and followed. The ground was cold, wet moss giving under her boots. The forest swallowed her after only a few steps. The light from the camp vanished behind her, replaced by a suffocating darkness that seemed to absorb the beam of her flashlight. "Thomas?" No answer. The air felt heavy, pressing on her ears. Even the sound of her own breath seemed muted. Then she saw it, a flicker of light ahead. Her beam caught on something pale. Thomas. He was kneeling on the ground, still, his hands limp at his sides. And someone, stood over him. At first, she thought it was a person. The shape was roughly human. But it was wrong. The limbs were too long, the shoulders too narrow. Its skin wasn't skin. It shimmered like wet bark, the color of old wood. It was moving, but not breathing, just shifting, like the trees around it were leaning with it. Lena couldn't breathe. The creature was bent over Thomas, its head hovering inches from his face. She realized it wasn't touching him. It was listening. Then it straightened, slowly. It turned its head toward her. There was no face, only a smooth, wet surface that caught her flashlight and reflected her own terrified shape back at her. Lena gasped. The sound echoed too loudly. The creature tilted its head slightly, as if mimicking her movement. And then it moved. Not fast, just close. One moment it was standing by Thomas. The next, the black between trees was filled with its outline. She ran. Branches tore at her arms. Her flashlight hit the ground, the beam slicing through the dark as she stumbled, fell, and kept running. Behind her, no footsteps, no chase, just silence, which was worse. When she burst back into the clearing, her throat was raw from screaming. "Wake up! Get up!" Mark was the first to crawl out, eyes wide. Sarah followed, disoriented. "It got Thomas," Lena shouted, grabbing her bag. "We have to go, now." Mark didn't ask questions. "Grab everything you can." Within seconds, chaos. Zippers tearing, footsteps, panic. The night filled with the frantic noise of movement. They ran into the trees, flashlights swinging wildly. "Follow the slope," Mark yelled. "There's a stream down there." They ran until their lungs burned. The forest seemed endless, every direction the same. When the trees finally thinned, Lena almost sobbed with relief. But the relief turned to ice. The clearing opened before them. Their tents, the fire pit, the same burned logs, still faintly smoking. "No," Sarah whispered. "No, we ran the other way." Mark turned in circles, eyes wild. "That's impossible." Lena's hands were shaking. "We're back." Thomas's tent was still standing, closed, perfectly undisturbed. Mark dropped his bag. "It's not real," he said, voice cracking. "It's not real." Then the air changed. The temperature dropped so fast that Lena saw her own breath. A deep vibration rolled through the ground. Not a sound, but a pressure inside her skull. Sarah clutched her ears, crying. Mark staggered forward. His expression went blank. "Mark, don't!" Lena shouted. But her own voice sounded distant, underwater. Mark took a step toward the tree line, then another. Sarah followed. Their movements were slow, dreamlike. From the shadows, it emerged, tall, twisted, the same form she'd seen in the woods, only now clear, illuminated by their dying flashlights. Its surface rippled like oil and wood fused together, faint pulses of dim light crawling beneath it, as if it had veins of glowing sap. Lena felt the pressure grow. Her teeth ached from it. The sound wasn't outside, it was inside her head. She dropped the flashlight and clamped her hands over her ears. The world dulled instantly, the vibration turning to a heavy, suffocating hum in her chest. When she looked up, Mark and Sarah were walking straight toward the creature. "No!" Her scream was silent to her own ears. She grabbed the camera from her pack with shaking hands and pressed record. The lens flickered on, painting her face in its small red light. "If someone finds this," she whispered, voice trembling, "don't stay here. It's not gone. The camp. It's..." The camera jolted. The light dimmed. Lena's eyes widened. Reflected in the lens, behind her, a shape began to rise. "They're gone," she whispered, half to herself. Then the red light blinked out. Static. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the sound of breathing started again.
If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.